Good afternoon. I was just walking on the beach and I realized I really need to make a video. And this is going to be part one about medical corruption on Guam. And who better to start with than the head of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, who's in charge of protecting us from negligent doctors and other problems, and which doctors come to Guam. Let's start off with Dr. Nathaniel Berg, the X-ray technician that owns Guam Radiology in Tamuning. Dr. Berg is the head of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. He's a chairperson, and he's the best person to start off with. Recently, at the legislature, we had a hearing on the Forced Arbitration Act, which leaves doctors who kill or injure us pretty much unaccountable, and they have no responsibility, pretty much can walk away. We've talked about this a lot, but the testimony of Dr. Berg came out, and he said that there should not be a change in public policy based on what happened to one person. He didn't say Asher Dean, but he did say based on one person we shouldn't change a successful public policy. Just listen to his words and you can see exactly where he's coming from. What exactly is he trying to protect?
It's there, but I think the reason we're here is because of an extraordinarily tragic event. But that should not derail the continuous improvement in healthcare that we have seen working with the current system. It works. And that one event should not change the incredible healthcare growth that we've seen that makes us a better island, so that air traffic controllers will continue to come out now because they know it's good quality healthcare.
Thank you, Dr. Berg.
Thank you for your time.
Doctor, please state your name for the record.
Whoa. So we're saying that we're more concerned about air traffic controllers coming to Guam than the people of Guam and the quality of health care and protecting the people of Guam, Dr. Berg, which is your job as the chair of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, to make sure that you protect us. But instead, you're saying, we're going to worry about air traffic controllers. And now you're referring to my son, and of course I know you're talking about Asher. You're referring to my son as a tragic event, and Dr. Berg, so you're saying that one tragic event shouldn't change how you do things, how things are done on the island, because it's better for the rest of us? So are you saying that we should, living on Guam, be aware that we have to sacrifice our loved ones because we need to worry about air traffic controllers coming to Guam, or we need to keep improving things so doctors like you do not have to worry about paying malpractice insurance? Come on, Dr. Berg. Let's be honest. You're in the position of having to listen to us. That's your job, is to protect us. It's right on your website. You're the chairman. If you can't be the chairperson and protect us at the same time, then you shouldn't be there. We're talking about the death of a 5-year-old. We're talking about medical negligence. We're not talking about someone spraining an ankle or something like this. So you're supposed to protect us. And Dr. Berg, you're saying one person, one tragic event. Didn't you see the other people that were sitting there going to give testimony that day about their own families and their own tragic events? How many people have to come forward and explain that to you? Didn't you see them sitting there? Oh, wait a minute. You ran out the door and you didn't listen to the other families and victims. That's your job also. At least give us your time as the chair of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, whose mission is to protect the people of Guam. Are you not aware of the statistics that approximately estimate that maybe that 10 people die per month on Guam due to medical negligence based on national statistics? Are you not aware of that? Okay, so why is you couldn't even sit there? Here you are, right out the door. Couldn't listen to us after you finished giving your testimony how we need to make sacrifices for air traffic controllers. the music. Let's watch it again. Let's watch the person who's in charge of protecting us at the head of the board run out the door before he even listens to the consumers. Let's watch Dr. Berg do it again. It's really interesting. No interest in all. We have to worry about air traffic controllers if we're living on Guam. Thank you for watching that. Dr. Berg, why is it that in the last 3 years, of all the complaints that went to your board, all were decided in the favor of doctors? The bulk of them were decided in favor of doctors. And yet you say you do, you do impartial hearings and that you investigate completely and that you're happy with the process and so forth and so on. Let's listen to what Senator Talai said about the bulk and then your response, how you said everything's fine at the board the way you do these hearings.
Resulted in no violations. In 2019, there were 16 complaints. 14 of those resulted in no violations. And 2020, these are still pending. There were 3 complaints. So the bulk of them are resulting in no violations, and you feel confident that this has been a fair process all around and protective of the interests of the people of Guam?
I do, and if you look at each individual case, again, some of them are dismissed because of the wrong board. The other ones, the whole, we investigate as a whole on top of having the individual. So if someone has a significant conflict, as is the board makes that decision, they are recused from any involvement with those individual cases. But we discuss cases in a public format, inviting all the parties involved. We typically look for the lowest level of resolution.
Listen to yourself after Senator Talai tells you the bulk of them were no problems at all in the way you look at things. Just like when you investigated Asher's, you said people with conflicts of interest will recuse themselves and won't participate in investigations of clinics or doctors. Is that what you did with Asher? Did you recuse yourself? How much do you make from the SDA clinic in terms of referrals and other income? You didn't recuse yourself. You definitely should have recused yourself. Just the appearance of a conflict of interest. You said you do investigations and that you're impartial. We just heard you say it. Isn't an investigation? Well, let me just say it this way. That's a lie. You don't do investigations. Based on my own experience, you do not do investigations. You did not do an investigation with Asher Dean. You didn't even talk to us. You didn't call us. You didn't meet with us. You didn't talk to us. You took the written information and you didn't speak to us. You didn't call us in to ask us what happens during the meetings with the doctors. You did nothing. There's no way, there's no place in this world that an investigation could be impartial and complete without discussing what happened with the victims, especially in the death of a 5-year-old. So you think that it doesn't look that it's fixed? You're making money off the clinic? If I'm wrong, let me know. You get referrals from the clinic. At the same time, you call the clinic, you get their records, but you never speak to us. And then to make it even make matters worse, you didn't even tell us the results of your investigation. Instead, you released it to the Pacific Daily News. My family had to read about the death of my son in the Pacific Daily News and your flawed investigation. And somehow you say, oh, I'm for the people of Guam, I'm the chair. You need to remove yourself from that position. You released it to the newspaper without telling us. And you call that impartial? Imagine if the police department did things the way that you do and did an investigation. You obviously were favoring the people that you were investigating. And if you weren't, it does look that way. How much do you make? I'm asking the question again. Shame on you. And that has to do a lot with the corruption. I told you the medical records were fake. They were wrong. They weren't correct. You didn't talk to me about it. You didn't ask me why. You didn't care. So you think we all look at you like, oh, he made a good decision. Or like you said, you lied and said you investigate completely. You don't. You were a fly on the wall. This is what we would probably see with the investigation done by the Guam Board of Medical Examiners and Nathaniel Berg, the X-ray technician. Watch here. Hello? Oh, Dr. Berg, how are you? Yes, oh, yes. Asher Lubofsky, yes, yes. We have records. Dr. Berg, did you get the referrals we sent to you last week and from last month? Yes. We have many more coming. Oh, Lubofsky, Asher Lubofsky, yeah. We have his record. Yeah. We did everything we're supposed to do. Yeah, of course. Dr. Berg, we have many referrals coming to you next month also. Okay, so I hope that you'll get them, okay. Guam Radiology, yes. Dr. Yeah, Lubofsky, I got his file right here next to the referral sheets. Okay, Dr. Berg, expect the referrals. Expect Lubofsky's file. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice day. For sure, since they never spoke to us and they didn't give enough concern about Asher, we probably just witnessed the exact same interaction that happened. They called the clinic. Oh, yeah. The clinic sent the records. Oh, yeah. And then they decided, no, we can't go against the doctors where we have a conflict of interest. And that was it. Thank you for watching this video. This is the first video on medical corruption. There's going to be a second one coming out regarding a doctor in Guam who advocates for the Malpractice Arbitration Act and why it's so important from what it sounds like to her. If interested, continue to watch, and you can watch my testimony given at the Guam legislature that I gave against the confirmation of Nathaniel Berg, and also on the oversight hearing of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners and the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners. Thank you very much. Continue to watch if you want to watch those things. Otherwise, adios, and thank you for all the support.
Mr. David Lubofsky. I can't hear you. Mr. Lubofsky, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, how's that?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I'm in quarantine down in Tumon, and Wi-Fi is limited. Anyways, thank you very much, senators, for allowing me to give testimony today. My name is David Lubofsky. Some of the, just let me be blunt to start off with, the Guam Medical Board and the Guam Allied Board have some similar problems. The Guam Board of Medical Examiners, currently under the leadership of Nathaniel Berg, has been in violation of the law for the last 8 years. The law that you mentioned, Senator, the Patient Protection Through Information Act. It's been 8 years since that law has been on the book, and they haven't done anything with it. There's no reason why it wasn't implemented. They have recently started to make some futile attempts after the lack of compliance was brought up at the arbitration information hearings recently. This law, the Protection Through Information Act, is a consumer law that protects patients on Guam against negligent doctors. The Guam Board of Medical Examiners, in a meeting that I attended last year, stated that they will license anyone who meets minimal qualifications. At that time, I almost went through the roof, and I heard this, as my son Asher had just recently passed away due to alleged medical incompetence by someone they licensed. The problem is, the board has knowingly, the medical board has knowingly licensed people with past histories of malpractice and sexual abuse allegations against them. That's a fact. That's not me making up. It's in the newspaper. There's a whole long list. They licensed these doctors with negative histories, and these doctors came to Guam and injured or sexually abused patients on Guam also. These were known to the board before they got here, but they licensed them. I don't understand that. To make matters worse, the Guam Board of Medical Examiners had 6 complaints in front of them before they decided to do anything with the sexual abuse allegations against a doctor from Guam Behavioral Health. Why not act after the first complaint? Why did it take 6 complaints before they did anything? Dr. Gill, in the past, spoke about peer reviews when the board receives complaints about doctors. She did an interview on KUAM. A peer review is a form of self-regulation by qualified members of a profession within the relevant field. Peer reviews rarely, if ever, I don't think they ever happen to the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, and should happen, as Dr. Gill said. I know for a fact Asher, my son Asher, never was afforded a peer review, and that should have definitely have happened. It's obvious to us, not only as parents, but people in the community, that the Guam Licensing Board of Medical Examiners is about the protection of themselves at the peril of the community. That's not just my opinion. Many people have that opinion. You would think, with the Arbitration Act protecting doctors, that the Guam Board of Medical Examiners would be on the other side, we would be more objective and more aggressive in their job to protect us. When they do investigations of complaints, this is really sad. When they do investigations of complaints against doctors, they, by our experience, refuse to meet with the victim's family or victim. Imagine, my 5-year-old son passes away, and they refuse to meet with me, the father who witnessed what happened, who watched my son. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, I just lost it. Okay. Watched my son dying at the clinic, and I had to argue with the doctor to have him examined. I went to the medical examiner's board meeting. I emailed them many times, and I asked them, what was the status of their investigation? And no information was, oh, we don't have a quorum. Oh, sorry, we didn't do anything. Sorry, we'll get back to you. It went on and on. It went on for months and months with no response until the exact same day that the Pacific Daily News released the story of our lawsuit against Seventh-day Adventist Clinic. That day, with no notice to us, with Nathaniel Berg and the board released the results of his investigation to the PDN, not informing us the results first and never once interviewing us. The PDN knew the contents of a letter that was going to be sent to us before we did, and they published and they referred to it in their story. We read about the death of my son and the investigation done by Nathaniel Berg. We were never notified. So when they talk about investigations and being listened at, this is the real story. It's my opinion that Nathaniel Berg and the board released the letter to protect the doctor at SDA the same day as the PDN article. And it shows a bias in their investigation. The current Guam Board of Medical Examiners, there's serious conflicts of interest. Do you think Asher, my son, or anyone can get a fair investigation of what happened to them at a clinic, or let's say SDA, by Dr. Berg, or any doctor who makes large sums of money from that clinic? Do you think Nathaniel Berg or any doctor would find fault and lose their income? Even if it's not true that he was impartial, the fact of it is the appearance of conflict of interest. For him and the board, it was simply to dismiss us, not talk to us, thinking we would just walk away. And as you know now, we're not walking anywhere. Why didn't Dr. Berg, as he's mentioned, recuse himself from the investigation of SDA? He has income from there. Why didn't he recuse himself? Many of the board members have conflicts of interest. The Guam Board of Medical Examiners, in my opinion, needs to be has some real serious ethical issues. It needs to be replaced. That maybe with new members. And there's conflicts of interest, and there's ethical incompetence by actions of the board, especially allowing doctors to come to Guam, knowing that they have histories of malpractice, and hurt us. Do the same thing on Guam and hurt us on sexual abuse allegations in the States, licensing these people. They come to Guam and they sexually abuse people. This is their responsibility. They're supposed to be protecting us. As long as, in my opinion, as long as Nathaniel Berg is on the board, especially as chair, and this board functions to protect doctors by its actions, not by my opinion, as it does now, at the expense of consumers, is my opinion lives will be lost on Guam, or injuries or sexual abuse by doctors will continue to happen with no accountability. Hiring anyone from the States who meets only minimal standards should not be the benchmark for bringing doctors to Guam, especially with histories of negligence. Oh yeah, well, we need a psychiatrist. Yeah, so what, he sexually abused somebody. We'll still bring him to Guam. It won't happen here. But it did. Regarding the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners, and there's a lot of similar information. Accountability is, as we've discussed many times, accountability has been a common theme on Guam lately in the news with discussions about the Medical Malpractice Forced Arbitration Act. This is particularly concerning with some of the questionable practice at the Guam Board of Medical Examiners and the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners. In the last public hearing on November 7, 2019, regarding the Forced Arbitration Act, Senator Talahi, she told Dr. Yasuhiro that his testimony, I'll never forget this, that his testimony was a breath of fresh air. And when she said that, I thought to myself, yes, it really was. I have to agree with what she said. Rather than focus on the arbitration pros and cons, he discussed the governing boards and the problems with the governing boards. This includes the Guam Board of Medical Examiners and the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners, among others, and how they handle complaints by consumers, the public, against professionals, whether it be doctors, physicians, assistants, or others. The need for impartial reviews, which is not happening now, of complaints was stressed by Dr. Yasuhiro and Senator Talahi, which would offset many of the problems that we see with arbitration. Dr. Yasuhiro said that if we have good boards, with impartial, and people feel they're getting a fair shake, a lot of the need for arbitration wouldn't exist. Consumers have a right to have their complaints heard by the Allied Board or the Guam Board of Medical Examiners without bias or apparent bias or prejudice. Board members should never, ever investigate their colleagues. This has also been said by Guam lawyers who defend people in malpractice cases. The colleagues are their friends. They should not be. It's definitely a conflict of interest. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe for me that the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners chair, Ms. Mimi Balahaja, has been on the Allied Board for over 20 years, as possibly maybe 4 other people. This is probably the longest chair or board members of any board on Guam for sure, or maybe anywhere in the country, or anywhere outside of an autocratic country. They're supposed to be reappointed as mandated by law every 3 years. Why hasn't it happened? No Guam board should have the same members that long. It negates new ideas, new members' motivation, etc. It destines the board to the humdrum and apathy and biases to maintain the status quo, not to mention easily leads to corruption. What also worries me is that just recently, the Board of Allied Health Examiners went to the legislature to establish ethics guidelines for the Guam Board's licensed professionals to get them approved in law. This is great. Ethics for professionals who are already practicing is better late than never. But they should have been established years ago. This should have been a top priority for the board, not to mention the board members who have been there for 20 years. What have they been doing? Ethical standards are the top priority for any governing licensing board and for any professional in the country. This is a known fact. How can you protect the community and hold people to professional standards when you never established such standards for 20 years until now? Who is holding the Guam Board of Health Examiners accountable? I'm positive that if you contact similar boards across the country, all will tell you that they have had established standards in place for years. I also used to be licensed with the Allied Board, so I know about this. This is one reason that board members need to be reappointed every 3 years, to keep people motivated, current in law and actions which are aimed to protect the community and hold members accountable. New members, young members, new blood, new ideas, new graduates, fresh energy, honesty, all needed on any board. With this is the need to establish a real impartial review system, as we discussed, for complaints of professionals at the board license. Yet still, as everything else at the Allied Board, the impartial review system has not been set up. It's at the same place it was 20 years ago when these board members joined the Allied Board. Reviews of citizens' complaints with the Allied Board, if they ever get around to doing them, because there's a bunch of them now that haven't been addressed, are not impartial, quite the opposite. They are biased from our experience. You cannot have a physician assistant reviewing or investigating another physician assistant when they're all buddies on the outside, as an example. And there's many examples of that. This is exactly what Dr. Yasuhiro emphasized in his testimony, and Senator Talahi discussed the need for fair, impartial boards that we do not have. And still today, as we listen to the board members discuss it, I don't hear this push for impartiality. I hear a lot of fluff and going around circles. This isn't 20 years ago and how things were done back then. It's time for these people who are on board for 20 years to either do their job or move on, and let's get some fresh minds. It's time for the Guam Board of Health Examiners to be under that same law as other boards, with members having to be reappointed every 3 years. It's time for Mamie and the others who have been on that board for 20 years to maybe leave. Let some new people come on. Let some other people that can protect us if you cannot do it. 15 months to address my complaint regarding Asher is way too long. It's not expeditious, as they said. It's a shame that it took that long. And it was only done that quickly because I kept saying stuff on the legislative floor, and finally they responded. Okay, I also want to make some comments on the reappointment of Dr. Berg while I'm here online, so I don't have to come back. I personally am against Dr. Berg being reappointed to the Guam Medical Board for the reasons that I have outlined in my testimony. He has shown, in my opinion.
Mr. Lubofsky, is this testimony on the confirmation then? We're not.
No, actually, I'm sorry, Senator. I combined it all together because it's all really the Guam Board, a medical examiner, and Dr. Berg is almost the same. So I combined it all, so I won't have to come back and talk another 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm just finishing up now with the reappointment testimony, if I can, on Dr. Berg. Is that okay? Okay.
Yes, if you could please keep it 5 minutes or less, please.
Oh, okay. It's gonna be quickly. Okay, regarding Dr. Berg, I'm against him being reappointed to the Guam Board for the reasons that I've already outlined in my presentation about the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. He has shown, in my opinion, incompetence, bias, has not followed the laws in the book, seemingly putting conflicts of interest before a proper investigation into complaints against doctors. I feel he's put his own interests first over that of the consumers, and has severe conflicts and an inability to recuse himself when for sure he should have done in the SDA case, as our example. He is responsible as chair for bringing doctors here to Guam who have injured us, maybe killed us, or sexually abused patients. He knew of the problems, he signed off on the problems, but he ignored them, and these people came to Guam and did the same things here. He has not in any way addressed how to mitigate consumer concerns or provide for an impartial board and peer review. Both are called for. He refuses to recognize that people die of medical negligence on Guam and will not set up a system to offset it or mitigate it or even follow the laws on the book, such as, again, the Patient Protection to Information Act. One last comment, adding insult to injury. During the hearings that you held, Senator, regarding the Arbitration Act, when Dr. Berg, when the consumers started expressing themselves, myself and the others, parents that were there and family members and so forth, when he started expressing himself, Dr. Berg got up and walked out of the legislation at the info hearings. I couldn't believe it. I was astonished. Imagine the chairperson of the board in charge of protecting Guam's patients and consumers walks out when Guam's patients and consumers are talking about their problems. Didn't care, walked right out the door. What they have to say and express wasn't important enough for him to sit and listen to. Further evidence that he isn't right for the board, in my opinion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lubofsky, for your testimony. We will make sure that the latter portion is added to the committee report for the confirmation. Thank you. And so, senators, on the oversight questions, if you have questions for the panel before we move on to the